Hey, I'm Will Waring, you guys. I'm here to talk to you today about writing careers. Now, I will admit this is part of a project I have to do for one of my classes, but I take it seriously in terms of I know the struggle. I know how hard it is to be a writer. I just want to start off by saying, of course, every man and his dog thinks that, oh, well, when I retire, I'm going to write a novel. Well, when I retire, I'm going to start brain surgery, right? Like, it's not as simple as just waltzing in with a pile of work your first try, and then you're all of a sudden famous. Like, you become the author equivalent of Brad Pitt or something. I mean, it's not that simple. Writing is definitely it's a very rigorous and intricate process, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Now, writing, whenever somebody thinks of writing, they think of novels, and that's all they think of. They don't realize that the TV shows they watch, the movies they've seen, all of the video games they've ever played, every play they've ever seen, everything, all of it's written, right? Self-help books, textbooks, and not only are those written, but those are edited. There are editors, right? So, I mean, you could do anything from writing for newspaper articles, for writing for an online journal, uh, to writing for video games, to writing for what end up being Oscar-nominated movies, right? You can do any of that. Do not just confine yourself to stories if that's not your thing. That's my first piece of advice. I would say, since there are so many branches to go into, I'm just going to talk about the one that personally, my hair is giving me such a huge problem. I'm going to talk about the one that I personally aspire to. Now, what I plan to do when I get out of college is I plan to become a TA or get some sort of assistantship that will fund my graduate program. Now, I am hoping for that because that's another option. A lot of people think, well, I have all this information, I have to write with it. You can teach. You can teach when you go to classes, and you've taken countless classes in English, you've taken countless classes for writing workshops. You can teach, you can relay that information. You don't have to just be a writer. You're not confined to that. Now, I'm also a psych minor, so I plan on tackling a lot of issues with psychology as well, but I will say that I tend more towards fantasy because I firmly believe that it seems unfair to the ability of writing to just write about stuff that's already here, right? I mean, the ability of writing can create worlds that never existed before. They can create experiences that never would have been had by anybody. Alternate universes, really, things where people can experience and live in ways that they didn't think possible just by reading, just by taking in your story. I think that it's a fantastic idea, and I firmly believe that fantasy is where it should go. But a lot of people think, oh no, well, contemporary is where it's at. You know, you gotta be realistic. You gotta talk about, you know, sex and drugs and alcohol because that's what's current. But you know, just do whatever your heart clings to. Do whatever your mind works with. But don't be afraid to try new things either. That's another big thing. And that's actually the topic of what I'm going to say next. The idea that you shouldn't confine yourself. Never be stubborn. Being stubborn, it will cause you undeniable failure in the writing field. Never be stubborn. When you get your writing workshopped, when you get feedback from it, accept that feedback, take it in, revise your work. Understand that you are not the only source of information on what good writing is. You should be able to take information from other people. That's the whole point. I read an interview with Jordan Mechner. I wanted an interview myself, but he never replied. But I read an interview with Jordan Mechner. He was the creator of the video game Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which is one of my favorite video games. It's a favorite of a lot of people. And he was one of the writers there, but he explained his experience as you can't go into a meeting and expect everybody to just listen to your ideas. The whole writing process it's a collaborative work. You're not alone in this. The idea is so many people who write their own novels, they think that, oh well, I'm the only one. This is my thing. This is my prerogative. This is what I do. And that may be true, but you shouldn't be afraid to go to professors, to go to friends, family, and to see what they think about your writing. And presumably your family isn't going to give it to you straight. So I would say take writing classes. A lot of people think, oh well, I'm a good writer already. Why do I need to take classes? Well, Grammy award-winning singers didn't get to where they are by saying, oh, well, who cares about voice lessons, right? They practice constantly. They got help from other people. I mean, people don't get to where they are. They don't get to a successful plateau in life without help of others. I mean, that's what everybody else is for. I mean, they help you, they assist you in your journey, and you somehow assist them. You may not know how, but you do. And so, yeah. But Jordan Mechner also said that his writing, he essentially said his writing wasn't done enough justice in the medium that it was portrayed in, and he wanted it to be portrayed in different media. So what he did was he took his story and he made it into the best video game film adaptation, Prince of Persia. It was the most successful by and large. It might be just because Jake Gyllenhaal was in it, I don't know. But yeah, he also wrote a graphic novel. So here's a guy who wrote for a video game, made that video game into a movie, took the source material and expanded on it into a graphic novel. That is a successful person because they're not stubborn. They're willing to accept that there are other ways to go about it. Now, my last thing that I'm going to say is I'm going to talk about the field itself and how to succeed. The writing field itself is not the most lucrative of fields, right? I'm sure everybody out there is like, oh, I'm going to be like the next J.K. Rowling or the next Stephen King, but there's a 99.9% chance that's not going to happen. For J.K. Rowling, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be in place. She released her books at the perfect time, had the perfect marketing platform. And, they came out right as a new generation of children were coming in. They came out right as people were starting to create programs that encouraged reading with children, that encouraged higher education, all that sort of thing. So her books came out at the perfect time, and they were marketed really well. And that is the main reason for her success. Now, I mean, they were good, but there are countless other good stories out there that just don't make it because publishing companies don't see the value in the work, and they don't give it the right amount of time, the right amount of effort. You can't let that get you down. Now, it's all about going in with your hardest amount of work. Getting it in right off the bat. Your first novel might not make it, but don't let that discourage you. And even if you find out later that your first novel was horrible writing, don't let that discourage you. Right? We are all guilty of horrible writing. Every writer is. It just happens, right? Cliches are really difficult to avoid. That's why they're cliches. They're so common. So don't let that discourage you. But the field itself is extremely competitive. Like I said, every man and his dog thinks they can write a novel after they retire. Everybody's trying to get out there. So your goal is to start low. Is to start with a smaller job. Now the jobs range from $35,000 average to about $50,000. Novelists make $50,000 now. Really, really, really good freelance writers will have several projects at once, so they'll be making commission on a lot of those all at once. So they might make more. It depends what you're willing to do. You might have to get another job to support yourself. You might have to, wait tables. You might have to teach. Don't let it get you down, though. I mean, if this is your dream, which it's mine, then never give up. Because as soon as you give up is the second that your writing fails. I mean, you have to submit it to countless publications, countless, journals, magazines, whatever. You have to get recognized. That's the point. The novelists don't just, spawn out of the ether. I mean, there are people who were successful writers before with short stories and poems, and then they get this novel deal with a publishing company, and the publishing company makes them successful. And that's just the way the process works. It's not as simple as putting a book out there and becoming successful. I mean, that may happen with some cases, but that's not always the case. Now, learn from Jordan Mechner's example, please, because, I mean, what he did was phenomenal. He allowed his writing to transcend the limits of one medium. Right? He started with a video game. He ended up making a movie, a graphic novel. He's really successful now. That's a pretty big deal. Never be afraid to adapt your writing to a different medium, because sometimes you're just writing in a way that would be better suited for something that's acted out in real life, or something that has animations to assist it, or dialogue that's spoken to assist it. I mean, that's completely fine. You just have to understand that. I mean, not everybody can write novels that can stand on their own. So be willing to do that. Be willing to accept the lower paying jobs at first, and, ascend to the top just like any other profession. And yeah, never give up. So I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed specifically. Oh yeah, well, like I said, just to sum everything up, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, get classes. You're going to want to take English classes, go to college. You're going to want to get a degree. A degree will look good no matter what. And once you get your degree, look at funding for a graduate program if you want graduate school. But most importantly, never stop writing. Always send your stuff to publications. Always send yourself out there. It may be really hard at first. It may be really embarrassing. You may be really frightened. But get your work published as best you can, and don't just self-publish it, because that's a way of cheating yourself into believing that you've succeeded when you haven't, right? Not to harp on anyone who's self-published, but the idea is that if you believe your writing deserves to be read by a huge audience, then go for it. Self-publishing will never give you that. It won't. It just won't. You don't have the marketing. You don't have the publicity that comes with a publishing company. You need that if you want your writing to be hugely successful, hugely known. And if you believe your writing deserves that, shoot for the stars. So yeah, just submit your work to publications. Never stop writing. Don't be afraid to take up a teaching position. Don't be afraid to take up lower positions. Don't be afraid to be an editor. And you can even take your knowledge on writing novels and make a book about writing novels, and that can be published, and that can be hugely successful. Be creative and really hone in on what makes you the writer that you are. And don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to discover what you're good at. I usually write fantasy. I've written a really contemporary piece lately, and it was really well received. So, again, don't be afraid. So yeah, I hope this helps. This was my presentation, final presentation for an English class, but I hope it really helps. I hope it honestly does, and I hope a lot of you find this and find inspiration and motivation from it. Never stop being yourself. Never stop being the writer that you are. Just become a better one, is what I'd say. Just allow yourself to become better. Don't be stubborn thinking you're the best at what you do already, because no one's the best at what they do. I mean, whoever is too absorbed in his or her work to even understand what they do. So, alright. Find that balance. Don't give up. This is Will Waring signing out. Thank you.